in my career I've definitely seen more females have ACL injuries compared to men.
In the moment it was horrendous and it felt like a gunshot going off and like a pain that shot up my leg.
I knew what I'd done straight away. You sort of feel it in your knee. It was like the worst pain I've ever felt.
Bad news is it's a clean snap of your ACL. To start with, it's more like the shock and realisation of it.
I think the emotion hits straight away because, as I say, I think I knew what I'd done. You know that it's a big injury, it's a long time out.
Women footballers are 2 to 8 times more likely to suffer an ACL injury than their male counterparts. I've come down to Staplewood, the home of Southampton Football Club, to find out more from the experts and find out why more research is needed. Ben Cole spoke more about Bedwell's injury.
It causes the player to lose a season and a half, essentially. Last season we had one which was away at Leicester. The player went in for like a shoulder barge, and as she planted her right leg, there was pressure coming from this way and her knee buckled, which caused that.
I think it's just the frustration because you know that it's going to be that long 9-month recovery at least. You got surgery that you need to go through, which is always going to be tough.
How committed and how serious and how dedicated these players are towards their long-term, hopefully, ambition of becoming a professional footballer, it massively disrupts that progress. And even though an injury she might only be out for 6 months, it'll then take her another 6 months to get back into full fitness. And even then, there might be another likelihood of either the same knee getting injured, or now she's having to overcompensate on something else, and then she'll come back in and get some sort of calf injury or hamstring injury because of it.
Football is my escape. I mean, I'm a PE teacher, so it can be a very active job as well. So me not being able to teach, me not being able to go and play football, it literally took everything away from me, and football was my life, and it still is my life. So it almost felt like you had no purpose.
Strips that release from you.
Amelia Lee told us about the recovery process.
Recovery for an ACL can range anywhere between like 9 to 12 months, I'd say. 9 is like a really quick recovery, can be 12, even 13 months. A lot of it will depend on how quickly you have surgery for ACL injuries. A lot of people have to have reconstruction. The earlier you get that, the better, because then you can kind of build up afterwards. After you have the surgery, there's a period of kind of rest. The first thing is trying to get like extension back into the knee, range of motion, and then you're slowly building up like strength, stability, mobility around the joint, and then it kind of goes into can they jump, can they squat, and then slowly progressing onto pitch, straight line running, bit of change direction, bit of curve running, non-contact, contact. So it's a very long process. There's a lot of like details to it. From my point of view, with S&C, it's kind of the back end like return to play section that I do. The first kind of 6 to 8 months, I say, is majority medical stuff, and then although I'd be involved in it, it's like the back end that would be kind of my bit. So that's making sure that they're ready to go into training as they were before they did the injury, or even better. So yeah, making sure they can cut, they can change direction, they're at their top speed they were pre-injury, and that they're robust enough to go back into the game with no issues.
I think the toughest for me was like the first week after the surgery, because you get injured initially and then you have to wait a couple of weeks for the surgery, and in those weeks you sort of start feeling a bit better within yourself and the injury, and the surgery feels like it just takes you straight back to nothing. You then you can't walk again. You have to have everybody, like, you can't do things for yourself. Like, how are you going to pour yourself a glass of milk if you can't carry it and things on crutches? Like, you then have to rely on so many people. And I think that stands out as, like, probably the toughest time for me.
The difference between professional setups and semi-pro grassroots level setups is clear.
I had a really good, obviously, support around me. Had sort of meetings with a psychologist there, make sure that obviously everything's going right with my mindset to get back onto the pitch, but also just during that rehab phase.
We've got a real good support staff of physical performance coaches, so all the way from under 14 up to senior football, there's always going to be like an S&C or a physical performance coach overseeing the warm-up, overseeing like the first exercises, making sure that they're prepared to then go in fully to a football session. So yeah, certainly from our side, we have pre-activation, which includes band work. Amelia is our S&C coach is well versed on injury prevention, so she'll generally put the girls through like a 15-20 minute thorough warm-up to make sure that their muscles, joints, everything's prepared to then go into a football session. So from our side, we're very fortunate that we have the support staff.
The multidisciplinary aspect of staff is so important. I think everyone's very interlinked. At the end of the day, everybody wants the best for the girls and for them to develop, to fulfill their potential. So it's so important. I think performance and a physio, medical staff are like really close. It's a lot of collaboration, a lot of constant like discussions. I think it's important for coaches to have a really good awareness of what an ACL injury looks like, how we can stop it, and also what that looks like over time.
I didn't have the physio straight away, and we actually think that prolonged my recovery because I wasn't getting a deep tissue massage to relieve the damage that had been done. So it's very hard navigating it by yourself when you haven't got a physio or a doctor telling you, right, no, you're fine, you can push through this. In terms of football ACL recovery, it was more doing your own research, learning and getting advice off people who've been through the same situation, and coaches and physios going and doing their research as well within the club to support me and get me through. I feel like if I'd had a physio here who could have worked with me every training session and done some like deep tissue release, etc., I probably could have got back to the pitch a lot quicker. But obviously I didn't have that, and I had to pay for it myself outside of the club.
Mir, who plays at a semi-professional level, told us more about the differences in ACL recovery compared to those in a professional setup.
If you look on social media nowadays, when girls in our league have ripped their ACLs, they're fundraising, trying to make money, because if you're waiting on the NHS, you're waiting for months, years, and it's just too long and you almost write yourself off. So it's really, really important to, I think, that we support girls who could risk snapping their ACL at this level, because it is such a big injury to go through, and it's also a reason why a lot of girls don't come back. Why should someone in our league not get the support that a professional's getting? Because we all love football the same, and you don't know where we could go in the future.
But most importantly, why do female players get more ACL injuries compared to male footballers?
Could be due to a number of factors. One of them is biomechanics of the female athlete having wider hips, increases something called a Q angle, which puts different pressures on the knees. There's looks into boots and stud placement to see if that has any effect. I would say the conditioning they get from a young age is probably different to a male footballer. They get exposed to things later, and probably the quality of training they get is different. And probably hormonal changes as well to do with the menstrual cycle.
There are differences in the anatomy between males and females, and that's the actual angle between where the knee and the hip lives. Also, from a muscular point of view, male athletes have much stronger muscles around the knee, which stabilise the knee, so they're less, they're less prone to those injuries. There's something about the way the dynamics about how females run and the angles they run that might predispose themselves to injury as well. There's also some research in terms of hormonal changes or differences between males and females, in that both relaxin and estrogen can actually affect the laxity of ligaments and also collagen formation. So that, whereas there's a lot more research that needs to be done in that area, that is also another risk factor in terms of increased levels of injury.
Physically, there's like a lot of like anatomical differences between males and females, which is why there is a much greater risk. I think one of the main things is like women are very like quad dominant, which can like increase ACL risk. Sometimes have more like knee valgus, so knees pointing in. Boots are not made for women to wear. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of alterations that need to be done to the male boot to make them really like appropriate and safe for a female. Also, the like pelvis angle for a woman, the Q angle, is a lot bigger. So like when they're change direction, turning, it's a lot more like force going through the joints, which is why we see them a lot more than in the men's game.
The femoral notch size may be different, and all these anatomical differences, they translate into increased force on the outside of the knee, which tends to cause the injury. Quite often it happens when there's a sudden change, deceleration, a planting type injury when there's a sudden turn, or a jumping, a landing injury.
Dr. Farhad Islam told us about the techniques used in attempt to avoid the injury.
Prevention type techniques are to strengthen preferentially the hamstring muscles. So there are particular programs, and FIFA run one of them, FIFA Pro 11, which aim at looking at techniques to overcome those anatomical differences, the muscle differences, and the techniques that you use in terms of running and turning, so that you're able to overcome those.
Despite the current expertise, the message is clear.
Because most of the research is on male athletes, and that's why it's going to take time to get this data, but certainly more research is required.
For me, like, there's still a lot of research to be done.
It's something that needs to be done.
Yeah, I also think there probably isn't enough.